Hi, I'm Christian, and this is my co-host, Jamie Horton.
Oh, I get a last name.
You do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm like a real boy.
And this is Tokusatsu, means special effects.
It does.
All right. And that's where the intro song will go.
Oh, okay. I thought you blue screened there.
Yeah. Okay, anyway. So this is the second episode of Tokusatsu means special effects, which is really cool because when we made the first one, we weren't even planning originally to make a talk show. It was like spur of the moment. All that's left is to say that a surprising amount of people for what it was watched it, and it's like really cool to me. So for everybody who watched that, thank you. Although the show going forward, and we do plan on continuing it, the show going forward will be a little bit more focused. I was talking to Jamie about it, and what we want to do, is cover one movie and maybe 2 episodes of a TV show that are all tokusatsu or tokusatsu relevant and discuss those. So anyway, now it's finally time to start the show. Jamie, how are you doing?
Good. So I watched Transformers: Dark of the Moon. Does that count?
I mean, that does technically count, but those are not what we discussed. What did we discuss watching this time?
So we watched Destroy All Monsters, the 1968 classic.
Not Godzilla Destroy All Monsters. That's not a film. I thought that was the name of the movie.
Oh, no, it's just...
It's just Destroy All Monsters.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess it was just assumed to be part of that series of films.
Yeah.
By Toshiro Honda?
I don't know. Yeah. I actually didn't look into that.
But yeah, I think he directed that series of films, at least like the first 2.
What was his other one?
What was the sequel to Godzilla? Godzilla's Revenge?
Oh, isn't it Return of Godzilla? No.
One of those. I feel like
Godzilla Raids Again.
Yes, thank you. I feel like a lot of these movies have 2 different titles. And either it's based on just a bad translation or just distributors are weird like that.
Yeah, in the last video, when I was like editing it, I guess everybody knows now that I was the one who edited it. When you mentioned that in the last video, I actually looked it up, and like a lot of the movies really do have those multiple titles. Yeah, so you were right about that. And what was the second thing we watched?
2 episodes of Ultraman Orb.
Yes, that's actually, I have a bunch of questions here for Jamie, just like last time. You know what, let's start with Orb.
Okay.
I thought we were going to start with Godzilla, but actually let's start with Orb. So, why did you choose Orb? I chose Destroy All Monsters because the description of the movie sounded cool. And I told Jamie to choose a TV show, and he chose Ultraman Orb. So why Orb?
I don't know. I mean, it had a really cool thumbnail on the app that I was watching it on. But you know what? For decades, I always thought it would be cool to be an Ultraman fan. Because Ultraman has like everything that I like. I mean, like people in costumes and martial arts and special effects and kaiju and martial arts. I already said that. You know, aliens and horror aspects and comedy. It's just like, it's kind of like an all-in-one. It's a potpourri of all the things I love. But I never actually just pulled the trigger on that.
On any Ultraman stuff?
There was a series, I want to say it came out in the 90s. It was an Australian-Japanese co-production series that was based in the Ultraman universe. I don't remember what it was specifically called, but I remember that it didn't quite excite me, so I just kind of stopped watching after a while. But I like the general idea of Ultraman, and I thought that Ultraman Orb was definitely like what I wanted to see, like, you know, the Ultraman that I was kind of imagining. I guess maybe it looked a little silly in my eyes, like he wears like a big armored helmet.
Yeah.
And then the rest of his costume is just, it's just spandex.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no armor here, although in later seasons, from what I understand, or for what I saw, including Ultraman Orb, there's a little bit more armor going on.
Yeah.
There's like a little bit more like shoulder armor, So he's built up a bit more.
So what did you think of it, having watched, I mean, I just watched the 2 episodes. Did you watch more than 2?
I just watched the 2.
Yeah, me too. So
Although I started watching, I don't know if my app glitched up, but it started playing the first episode of something called, is it Ultraman Orb?
Yeah, you told me that you accidentally watched that.
It was definitely like the culmination of at least 2 shows, because it seemed like a lot of stuff was happening. I got 15 minutes into it, and what I was watching was astonishing. Like, it was just pure, non-stop sci-fi action. It's like on like a graveyard planet where like these kaiju spirits are resurrected, and just constant action. Ultramen from like all the decades, like teaming up together. And
Isn't that kind of Orb's thing though? Like, just in those 2 episodes, they were like, look, you're gonna see a lot of Ultramen.
Yes.
And well, that was cool.
That seems to be the general conceit with Ultraman Orb, that the main character, the Ultraman of this particular show, Guy, G-A-I, can harness the powers of at least 2 other Ultramen of the past and augment his powers so that he can
I thought
fight
that was
kaiju on Earth.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
If it was something I was more familiar with, the thing is, I don't know Ultraman. This is the first Ultraman thing I've ever watched, besides like parodies and references in other media. So like when he's turning into all these different, well, when he's fusing himself with all these different Ultramen, that would be so cool if it was something I knew about.
Right, right.
Like if it was I mean, I'm more familiar with Godzilla now, right? So if it was like a Godzilla movie where Jet Jaguar could fuse himself with the monsters, I'd be like, that's so cool.
That would be cool.
So I can see myself, if I were into Ultraman, being into that.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. No, but the show itself was very entertaining. Like Ultraman Orb, not Ultraman Orb. That was entertaining in itself. But
You
I
just
was
had no
like,
idea what you were watching.
Well, because I'd gone on an online forum, just like, can I just watch, what Ultraman shows can I watch from the beginning and not have to watch like the original like 1960s version, and work my way up. Would I be completely lost if I just jumped into one of these newer shows? And the consensus was that each new series focuses on one new character that has inherited or has come upon the Ultraman powers, and we follow their story. And it's meant for the new viewer. And that's what this was. In fact, it was more than that, where Ultraman isn't really even the main character of this show.
Of this particular one, it's like the
SSP, the something search people.
Yeah, isn't that literally, it's something search people?
I don't know what that means.
They're kind of weird. They feel like they're from an anime. Like those characters don't feel like TV show characters. They're like anime tropes.
Very cartoonish.
Like the girl falls and like she falls into like a provocative pose, and there's like the genius character who just comes up with inventions out of nowhere, and it feels like anime.
Yeah. Naomi, Jetta, and Shin.
They have like kaiju names, like maybe not Naomi, but Shin and Jetta. Like Japanese people love the word jet, I've noticed. Like if you play, there's a lot of Japanese games where they'll be like, there's an attack that's like the jet something. There's just words, there's like English words that Japanese people just think are awesome. Or Jetta has some meaning in Japanese that I'm just completely glossing over, and I'm being America-centric, United States-centric.
Neither of us are fluent in Japanese, so.
I know very little.
Disclaimer. But no, I thought Naomi was, like, she's arguably the protagonist.
She's the most interesting character.
Yeah, and she's just, like, one of her traits is that, she wants to prove herself, she wants to go out and get footage of these new creatures, which actually was interesting to me, thinking, how is this part of a greater story?
Yeah.
If, like, an organization like the SSP are, trying to get footage of this stuff? It's like, oh, what is that monster? It's like, well, it's a kaiju.
Yeah.
Don't you know this?
Oh my God, that was one of my biggest issues.
Ultraman. Yeah.
That was one of my biggest issues with it. They don't know what an Ultraman is, even though other people in the city seem to know what it is, especially Guy. And we only watched 2 episodes, so we don't know where Guy came from. Yeah. Maybe they do this in Japanese stuff a lot too, where there's just like a traveling character who just shows up and already knows about the plot and gets everybody else up to speed.
Is he the Sunset Wanderer of the
Yeah.
first episode?
A lot of kids anime have that character, and like Ultraman is essentially a kids anime. Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
there's a word for like Japanese media focused, targeted towards kids. I think it's kodomo.
Okay.
And like, there's always like that type of character. Jamie wouldn't have watched this, but I used to watch this show, Beyblade Metal Fusion, with my little brother. And like in the first episode, the main character shows up and he just knows everything about Beyblade. And you don't know about his parents, you don't know where he came from, and he just gets everybody up to speed. And like Guy is that. He already knows about Ultraman. He is an Ultraman. Although there's that thing in the opening where like the blonde, like American girl gets like decimated.
I didn't understand that, so I'm
I think
guessing
that's Guy. I think.
maybe that was a reference to the previous series.
Oh, maybe.
I don't know.
See, I don't know. It's kind of weird to go into like late stage Ultraman for no reason. Like not for no reason, but without any context.
But for the new viewer, having the protagonists be just normal human beings, you know, I think that's a good device for the show.
Yeah.
Because then it's like they're learning about Ultramen,
Yeah.
or Ultraman and kaiju for the first time. Initially, in the first episode, witnessing was it the Demon Lord of the Air?
Mega Bosser.
Yeah, Mega Bosser. That's
He
great.
was cool. I really liked Mega Bosser. So in the 2 episodes, there was Mega Bosser, and then there was what was
the underground one, the one that represented Earth.
Yeah,
The
I
Demon Lord
wrote.
of the
I swear I wrote it down somewhere. Nope, I didn't write it. I didn't write it down. But yeah, there was one that looked like he was like built of the city, which is weird because he's like ancient. And at first I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. Why does he look like a modern city if he's an ancient being? But then I realized he's from wherever the Ultramen are from.
Right, so he's from like a futuristic civilization.
Yeah. So like we're just like further behind than them.
Yeah.
Mega Bosser was cool. He was like if they made Rodan now, you know, because okay, the other movie we watched was Destroy All Monsters, and whenever they do a close up on Rodan's face, he looks like he has like a pinhead. He's like all squished. It looks like somebody grabbed his face and went like.
Yeah, he has more of a condor look. The Rodan in later series, like the
Is it
Millennium
Rodan or
series-
Rodan? Oh,
Well-
here we go again with the pronunciations. There's going to be the thing in the bottom.
Well, the original Japanese way to pronounce it is Radon.
Really?
Yeah, or Radan.
Really?
But for whatever reason, I guess maybe to differentiate this kaiju from a poisonous gas, the American dubs are Rodan. But no, he's much cooler and more dinosauric looking in the later shows, in the later series of different eras, and certainly in the legendary Monster.
He looks cooler in that one, yeah.
In fact, they make reference to, he starts off as Fire Rodan in the legendary movies, but that is a state that he becomes in the Japanese series.
Really? I guess I'll have to work my way up to that because I haven't seen Fire Rodan yet.
Yeah.
So another thing, why is it called Orb? They have rings. Why is it not Ultraman Ring?
I don't know. He had cards too. I guess there was like
Oh
a
my
kind of a
God, the
circular thing.
cards!
That's very Japanese.
Oh my God! Oh my God! So they have these like Bandai. Yeah, I mean that show. I think the show is by Bandai. So like Bandai must sell like the ring thing that he holds, and you put cards into it. So it's trading cards and it's toys.
Right.
And it's a show.
And I wonder if there is an interactive toy that children can
You don't
buy.
have to wonder. I'm sure.
Yeah,
Don't even wonder. It exists.
Right. It's very. A lot of these shows exist, just like Transformers. Well, to entertain audiences, but also to sell merchandise.
Yeah. It's so obvious with some of the stuff, though. But I mean, that's the point. We are adults talking about this thing that was made for kids.
Yeah.
Although it's this one especially, with all the references to previous Ultramen, it's obvious that it's for all ages. Like,
Sure.
yeah, it's for kids, but you know,
Yeah.
the kids aren't going to get the references.
Well, also
Not that I do.
there's definitely Ultraman shows that are adult oriented, not adult, but like there's scenes I've seen of like Ultraman, one of the Ultramen shooting like this energy blade, and it slices a kaiju in two, and he
sounds
just
awesome.
he just falls, just bifurcated, bisected right down the middle, and just like blood pours out from both sides. So obviously that's not for children.
Yeah.
So I wonder
I mean,
if there
I
is
guess,
like,
because it's a monster, so like who cares?
right, maybe it's just monster goo and not like, if it's not human blood, then it's not that violent
Yeah.
somehow.
But I think it's called Orb because of the rings. I think the rings are, I think it was just not bad translation, just like a misunderstanding of what an orb is, unless there's some Ultraman lore about orbs.
Yeah.
But there are no orbs in the first 2 episodes, but there are a lot of rings.
Although interestingly, and maybe it's unconnected because I haven't watched the rest of the show, the Earth kaiju, one of his weapons was putting these, when it hit a building, it made a completely clear round hole in it.
Do you think that rings are an element of this series? Like there's going to be allusions to rings everywhere?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm
if
looking
it's
forward to the rest of the series.
I don't know if
Apparently
it's
it's
that
only
deep.
1 season.
Really?
So yeah. But maybe like,
And 2 movies.
okay, great. That's interesting. Yeah. I guess this was like the Avengers of Japan. Well, Destroy All Monsters is
Oh my God.
literally like the first like
That
Avengers
Tokyo
type
destruction
of-
scene was so cool.
Yeah.
I loved that.
And all of those kaiju in Monsterland, later called Monster Island, those were introduced in earlier Toho movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, before we go into Destroy All Monsters, I think there's like one more thing I want to ask you about. The clubhouse thing they were renting. I want to know how they were affording that. Like, what were they doing before all the kaiju showed up? I know that UMA's unidentified mysterious animals are a big thing in Japan.
Right.
Just like it's there.
Cryptids?
Cryptids, thank
Yeah.
you. I can't. Anybody who knows me is not going to believe that I forgot the word cryptid, especially after the Moth Week video.
It's true.
I'll have to put a clip in
You're a
from the
literal
Moth Week
Mothman. Yeah.
when I became Mothman. It's Moth Week. It's Moth Week. For a whole week, I didn't take the costume off for a whole week.
That's dedication.
Yeah, method acting.
Mothad acting.
Method acting. Anyway, I want to know how those kids were like. I'm saying kids. They were probably mid-20s.
The actors were in their 20s.
I think the characters were also in their 20s because they were renting a space.
I don't know.
I just want to know what they were doing. Like, it seems like they were doing like sort of a newspaper, internet show type thing. That's it.
Maybe they had sponsors or maybe rich parents.
They probably had rich parents. Also, I thought it was really cool when Ultraman was like splitting apart when he ran out of time. When he was like there was like there was guys standing.
right. Where
and then
like,
the other ones were coming out.
they were like bending like ghostly from side to side. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very cool.
I thought
Yeah.
that was really cool.
And I also learned that the circle on an Ultraman's chest that starts blinking, that's called a color timer.
Really?
And that is an indication that he's losing his powers.
Have you ever seen Ben 10?
Not like a complete episode, but I understand its popularity.
I'm fairly certain he's based on Ultraman. Not only can he turn into Ultraman in season 2 or series 2, Alien Force, his final alien is Ultraman, I think.
Like literally Ultraman or like an obvious homage?
Obvious homage,
Okay.
but like very obvious. And he has a watch that starts blinking when he's running out of time.
There you go.
It's-
That's his color timer.
It's so obvious. So now we can move on to Destroy All Monsters, officially. And if I had to compare the two, the show that we just watched and the movie we just watched, as cool as Destroy All Monsters was, I will say, in the meantime, between the two, they've figured out monster fight choreography much better.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, this was back in 1968.
I know it's not a fair comparison, really, but I will say, like, they've just really improved the way that they're doing monster fights. Because there's parts where Godzilla will be fighting Ghidorah, and they're just sort of like pushing their bodies against each other.
But when you're like 5 years old, that's the coolest thing on earth. It's one of those things where it is for a specific audience, and it is of its time. I mean, certainly like watching Ultraman do martial arts against kaiju. That's a lot more exciting
Yeah.
than watching like two kaiju just kind of lumber against each other. But
I'm not hating on it though. The movie was cool.
Yeah. Well, there's some pretty cool moments like Gorosaurus.
He was so weird looking. I had never seen Gorosaurus before. What's he from?
Gosh, I want to say he was introduced in another Toho monster movie, but not a Godzilla movie.
Okay.
But fact check me on that one.
I will.
But it's interesting that he's obviously like a theropod dinosaur.
He's very
looking
dinosaur. Yeah.
Kaiju, similar to Godzilla, but he doesn't have a breath weapon. But what he does have is like this crazy like kicking attack where he like just springs up on his legs like kangaroo.
And he can burrow?
Yeah, apparently.
For some
And he
reason,
comes
even though
up
he's a T-Rex.
and destroys the Arc de Triomphe.
Yeah. In a really weirdly too. He only like comes out a little bit. He can't like get all the way out.
Well, he's got the tiny arms.
Yeah. Which he dug all the way through the.
Apparently, yeah, from Monsterland all the way to Europe. Yeah.
Yeah. But really cool movie. Manda was so cool.
Yeah. the
I
snake
didn't know
kaiju.
about him either.
But yeah, Manga is like he's a cross between a snake and more of like a Chinese dragon,
Yeah.
or long, I believe that it's pronounced. Where I think he does have like tiny arms, and although he doesn't fly, in one of the later movies he swims through the ocean,
Really.
similar to a way that a Chinese dragon would like swim through the air.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I thought he was really cool.
Yeah.
Even though he wasn't really in the movie or really that important. I wrote here, Manda didn't help in the final fight at all.
Right.
He showed up to destroy Tokyo, and then everybody went to fight Ghidorah, which I thought was so cool that they all worked together for that. Manda didn't even make it to the fight. He wasn't there.
Yeah. Well, he maybe that kaiju is very difficult to, and therefore expensive to stage a fight scene with. Because
Yeah.
if you think about it, like they're all men in suits, right? Or women in suits in the case of Anguirus, I believe.
Yeah. Oh, Anguirus was in one shot of the movie, and that's it.
Yeah. Right. And Anguirus is not, well, he's not as maybe popular or as well seen as a Mothra or a Rodan. But even though Godzilla, I think, kills him in the second Godzilla movie,
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like established in canon that like Godzilla and Anguirus are kind of friends.
Yeah, it's like an anime like respect thing. Like Goku beats Vegeta, and then Vegeta is like kind of cool with Goku from then on.
Right. But I always like them because Anguirus is like it's kind of like an ankylosaur in general form.
Yeah,
So it's like Godzilla looks like a Tyrannosaurus Rex or an Allosaurus, but is weirdly mutated. Like in a cool way.
yeah,
So he's got like the huge spines on his back that light up when he shoots his atomic breath. So too Anguirus is like just covered in spikes. So he has that fantastic element to it. And that's also what I like about Tokusatsu is the seamless blending of fantasy and science fiction and horror too.
hold that thought.
Okay.
Okay, all right, and we're back. Where were we?
Destroy all monsters.
Right. So for complete transparency, I had to get up for a second, and we lost our train of thought, but that's okay. Oh, you know what? There was something I wanted to say before I got up.
Okay.
The monster designs. There is a level of real life influence that I like versus like complete craziness.
You mean
Like
Godzilla looks like a theropod dinosaur, Anguirus looks like an ankylosaur, sort of.
sort of. I like the ones that are more creative but not completely like insane.
So King Ghidorah.
Yeah, Ghidorah is really good. Godzilla has an amazing design because he's like T-Rex-ish, but then you look at Gorosaurus, and Gorosaurus is just a dinosaur. Like, if you showed me a picture of Gorosaurus, and not knowing what kaiju is, I'd be like, okay, this is a puppet or a costume of a T-Rex, right? But Godzilla, it's like, that's Godzilla.
Right. Yeah,
He has this like squashed face, and he has his cool fin things, and
Yeah.
Whereas and then some other ones like what's the tarantula's name?
I'm sorry, I don't remember.
Well, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He's just a tarantula. There's
Right.
like nothing fancy about him.
And Mothra is, albeit a colorful one, a moth.
I give Mothra a pass. I think
he's
Mothra
adorable.
has like a
Or she is adorable.
yeah, she is, but I think she has a really like good unique design, just like Godzilla. Like she's on the same level of creativity as Godzilla to me.
Yep.
And I think Anguirus, whatever that name's always hard for me to pronounce, is I'm not going to say a bad design, but a boring design.
Okay.
I don't know if he was ever like redesigned in later films.
I think he's pretty much consistent.
I think he's kind of boring. He kind of just looks like a dinosaur.
He does have I think a rolling attack where he comes at another kaiju and lands his spiked back,
Yeah.
on their chest or wherever. So that's kind of cool at least. Ebera is basically like a giant crayfish, giant lobster.
I haven't seen that one yet. That's one I need to watch for sure.
Ebera, the Horror of the Deep, was
Right.
introduced in his own movie. But of course he fights Godzilla at the end. Was he in Destroy All Monsters?
No, I think, no, not at all.
Okay, I think he's in...
A future movie that you will hopefully watch.
This is all gearing up towards what I think is the best Godzilla movie ever made, Final Wars. But there's one more film that I want you to see before you see that.
I'm not watching Final Wars just yet.
Yeah.
I'm trying to go relatively in order.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all over the place, but I'm trying to stick with Showa for now. I'll work my way up.
Showa is, I believe, the same continuity, more or less. Even though there is seemingly like a huge time jump in Destroy All Monsters. It takes place in the futuristic 1999. But we have manned missions to other planets. So it's like, well, when did that happen?
Oh my God, yeah, it just is so commonplace in this movie.
And very futuristic technology regardless,
Yeah.
futuristic computers and futuristic guns and futuristic spacesuits.
Okay, there's a couple things I have to say, I need to say about this movie. First, I'm going to silence my phone.
Okay.
Like, this is just going to become like a running thing in this.
Professionalism.
So now I want to ask you a couple questions from this list. Okay, this movie is toys. This movie was made to sell toys. Like if
Destroy All Monsters? Certainly.
like Ultraman was made to sell toys, sure, but this movie, the spaceship,
Yeah.
all the different like military costumes, those yellow and red ones were so cool, especially the red ones. I want to wear that. I want to wear just like that jumpsuit. It's so cool. The tank that came out of the spaceship had a tank in it, and all the monsters.
Yeah. I think even the tanks in that movie look futuristic.
They do.
Yeah.
But the thing is, unlike Ultraman, where it's like I don't want those trading cards and the orb ring thing,
Yeah.
I really like all of the I really like all the props in Destroy All Monsters.
I was never into collecting cards. Like I never got into Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or anything like that. But no, I do have a wide collection of toys. So, well,
Right
we
there.
have a Millennium era Godzilla here.
So you know how on the island they had all these different defense mechanisms to keep all of the monsters on the island.
Right.
And we got to see some of them. Mothra is kept in by Raid. If she goes too far, she gets sprayed with Raid, and she doesn't like that.
Basically, yeah.
And Rodan gets hit by some like magnet AT field thing, and it launches him. I don't know if it launches him back. It makes him fly back though.
Like an electromagnetic shield that covers all
Yeah.
of Monsterland. Yeah.
Which they couldn't use. No, I guess they couldn't use it underwater. Never mind.
Yeah. Because Godzilla swims
Right.
and Manda swims.
But also, like Godzilla's was like some kind of gas coming out of the spout, and I assume it was to imply that it's cold, like because you beat Godzilla by freezing him.
Right.
So I think that was like some sort of freezing gas.
Yeah, maybe it was Freon or something.
But then we didn't get to see all the other weaknesses. Sure, Minya? I think they pronounce it Minya.
In the original Japanese, it's Manila,
Yeah.
but in most American dubs, I believe it's Minya.
Did you watch the dub, or is there a dub for this movie? I watched the subtitle.
I watched the dub.
Oh, jeez, I didn't know that. Maybe I should have watched the dub. Okay, on HBO Max they only had the sub. Anyway, but then we didn't get to see everybody else's weaknesses, which I really would have liked to see. Whatever. The United Nations people are on the moon doing their moon mission, and then they get a call from Earth, like, you guys have to come back. we need your help. How was the closest soldier you could find on the moon?
Yeah.
There was nobody on Earth you could ask for help?
Well,
That's ridiculous.
but also if it's a movie for children.
I know. Like the monsters were teleporting all over the place too.
Yeah.
They were like, the monsters have gone missing. They're in Paris. And it's like in 5 seconds they got to Paris.
Right, like how much time has elapsed?
I just thought that was so funny when they were like, you have to come back from the moon. As if it's just like, you have to come back from the grocery store.
Yeah, right. Although they had advanced technology, but yeah, of course, like why aren't there any other soldiers that can
Yeah.
help with this mission?
Also, this movie was rated G. A man was shot in the face.
Right, yeah.
An
There is a gunfight.
innocent man.
Yeah.
An innocent man is shot in the head and killed.
I
And this
feel
movie
like-
is rated G.
Yeah, I feel like whoever put the rating on there thought that these are just movies for children. It's like, oh, it's just rubber monsters. But yeah, a lot of the
There's
movie
human
is...
violence.
What's that?
There's a lot of human violence.
Yeah,
A man commits suicide.
That's true.
The guy yanks the earrings out of his girlfriend's ears too,
Yeah.
and it's all bloody.
Rips right through the skin and there's blood everywhere. But I think,
It's really not, like, it's not that disturbing. Even though it's violent, it's not like a disturbing movie.
no, it's more of like half the movie is like a spy thriller.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a gunfight. There's a prolonged gunfight. That's something that I hadn't seen the movie in a long, long time. And I was surprised at how much human drama there was.
Yeah.
Well, human versus alien, the Kelex.
Yeah.
Right. You know, I remember it being just like 90% monsters fighting. But that's not.
It's
but that's,
really only the last like 20 minutes of the movie.
that's what a child remembers.
Yeah.
An adult watching the entire movie from beginning to end will see the entire movie as it was meant to be shown. And yeah, it was kind of like, this is mostly people.
Yeah.
And that was like one of the complaints of the legendary Monsterverse
Oh, those are much
movies.
worse.
It's like, oh, the human stuff is so boring. But it's like, if you look at the Showa era
I mean,
Godzilla
okay, I
movies,
said
it's
much
the same
worse. That's
thing.
not true. It's not much worse. It just is worse. It's not much worse.
I want to
Because
say,
they both do it.
Yeah.
And I think this one did it a little bit too much. I think they should have made it a little bit quicker. Maybe spend more time on Monsterland. Maybe spend more time on Monsterland showing what the monsters are like
right.
and show off all those different defense mechanisms. And then do the spy story, but a little quicker, and then go into all the actual stuff at the end.
Yeah.
I do think they spent too much time on the human and alien conflict,
Right.
but I didn't dislike it. I still liked it.
Yeah, well, the costumes for the aliens are fun.
Yeah.
And the characters and their acting is so over the top, so it's still cartoonish, and it's kind of like watching like a comic book come to life,
Yeah.
or an anime.
So, okay. We have to end this because we're running out of memory, and last time we ran out of memory entirely, and that was ridiculous. Which is, I liked the way I fixed it, though.
That was clever.
Anyway, I'm a big MF Doom fan, and his album, "Take Me to Your Leader," is all. It's like a kaiju concept album, and watching all these Godzilla movies is making me notice how many sound effects and songs and samples from the "Take Me to Your Leader" album are from these movies. And I guess I knew that, like, they must have been, right? Because it's a concept album. But actually knowing where all those sounds come from is super cool to me.
Oh, and Godzilla, like Toho's sound library and their music is amazing.
Yeah. Although I wish Godzilla would shut up a little bit sometimes. Those like short screeches he does are really annoying
Yeah.
to me. There's like going to be a Godzilla short screech fan out there who's like, what are you talking about? That's the best part of the movie. So of the two things we watched, do you have any final thoughts?
I definitely want to watch more of Ultraman Orb.
More Orb. Got it.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to another movie that I'm going to recommend to you. Shall I just say it?
It might as well, yeah. So we're going to be watching another 2 episodes of a show and another movie for next time. Yeah. So what's your choice?
Godzilla, wait. I'm trying to remember the names. There's actually 2 names for it. I want to say Attack of Astro Monster
Okay.
or Godzilla versus Monster X.
Same movie?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So however that appears on whatever streaming service that you're going to use, that is the movie. I think it's funny because it's very similar to Destroy All Monsters, but I rewatched it and I think it's actually a better film.
Okay. My choice is going to be Akibaranger.
Okay.
I talked about that one a little bit before. I watched some of it about 3 years ago, and I remember really liking it, but I didn't like get super into it. And this is my chance and Jamie's chance. So we're gonna watch Akibaranger.
Cool.
Before we cut this off, and I think we still have time. You know, actually, I did want to say one thing. Of the stuff we watched, which one did you enjoy more? I know that's not a fair comparison. It's because it's 2 episodes of a show versus an entire story in a movie.
I mean, yeah, nostalgia goggles
Yeah.
make me want to say that Destroy All Monsters is an Ashiro Honda masterpiece, or monsterpiece. But I had more fun watching Ultraman Orb in those like small, like 20-minute action-packed, very cartoonish, very anime-like segments. You know, like just those installments. That was more fun to me.
I think I enjoyed Destroy All Monsters more, but I loved seeing how much they've improved the technology and methods of doing this type of media. So even though I like Destroy All Monsters more, I get why people like Ultraman, or at least the Ultraman we watched.
Yeah. Big fan base.
I don't think it really hooked me on Ultraman, but I'm sure we'll check out more of it in the future, and maybe I will get hooked. I don't know.
Ultraman reminds me of Gundam. Like, it's very popular in Japan, phenomenally popular. In America,
Not so much.
not so much.
Yeah. So this was Tokusatsu means special effects. Yeah, thank you for watching this. I'm Christian. Here's my co-host, Jamie Horton, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.
That would be cool to actually have like a showing of a movie.
Yeah.
Because we can do that as long as we don't say what it is on the flyer. That's how you get around that. You just say free movie showing and don't say what the movie is.
Interesting.
Yeah, we used to do that at the daycare I worked at. Is that okay? So you know how.
I like when Rich Evans will like call Mike and Jay out on Red Letter Media. It's like, you always cut out your own, mistakes, but you leave in all of mine.
Yeah.
And of course, you're watching the edited version, so you're not even aware that Mike and Jay are like, misspeaking. Did you hit record again?
That's right, Jay. I never paused it.
Oh, okay.
It was just gonna be like 2 minutes of nothing.
2 minutes of nothing. That's my new series.
I'm messing this up.
That's what editing is for.
Yep.